New at 6, a local group of Satanists has turned up the heat on a Cobb County elementary school.
Now, they have threatened to sue over their application to open a satanic club for Still Elementary school students. Now, members of the Atlanta chapter of the Satanic Temple say Still Elementary must either approve their club or drop a Christian club already set up at that school.
They're calling the club After School Satan. And the head of the Atlanta chapter of the Satanic Temple says they just want the same rights as other religious groups who already have after-school clubs. And they're prepared to take legal action if they don't get a response.
You know, I guess that's their right, but nobody here will be very receptive.
The Satanic Temple says they're just an activist group advocating for separation of church and state.
Actually, we don't believe in Satan. We're definitely a non-theistic religion. We believe Satan is a literary symbol and a device that we can use.
Atlanta chapter head Fred Mephisto says the group is asking for an after-school program at Still Elementary to draw attention to what he calls evangelical Christian after-school programs like the Good News Club, which the Satanic Temple doesn't think should be there.
And we are offering a secular, empirical-based curriculum as an alternative to religious-based after-school programs. The best case scenario to me would be that they recognize the need to enforce separation of church and state, and they suspend the Good News Clubs and other religious-based programs.
The Atlanta chapter of the Satanic Club is just one of several chapters around the country targeting schools like Still Elementary for an after-school Satan club.
A group of people who do not believe in God say they too have a right to conduct prayers before State House sessions. But their requests have been denied on several occasions, and now they are suing.
Thursday's federal court filing says those who don't believe in God are being discriminated against. The man who filed it says the lawsuit is not frivolous.
The House allows people who believe in God to present opening invocations, but the House will not allow atheists or humanists or other people who do not believe in God to present these opening invocations.
The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 2014 that governing bodies can open a session with a prayer, and no one can be discriminated against based on religious beliefs.
If you look back to the actual dictionary definition of what is a prayer, what is an invocation, it's someone calling upon God.
Cumberland County State Representative Stephen Bloom says there is no gray area in this case.
A person who does not believe there is a God can't actually do a prayer. It's been a tradition. If a court would order our time of prayer to be led by someone who explicitly does not believe in God, it's no longer a prayer, it's just a waste of everybody's time.
And that may be the central argument if it goes to court.
There are other cases, other Supreme Court and other court cases that have explained that atheism and humanism are religions entitled to the same protections.
Representative Bloom says it's unfair to label the House as a body that discriminates.
Imams have offered the prayer, rabbis have offered the prayer. It's an open forum for folks of different religions to offer the prayers, but the common thread is it's a prayer. You have to believe in God to offer a prayer, because a prayer is speaking to God.
Breaking news at 6 o'clock, a partial victory for opponents of North Carolina's HB 2. Welcome to the 6 o'clock news. I'm Katie Nordine.
And I'm Neil McNeil. This involves the bathroom portion of the bill and the University of North Carolina system.
Yeah, this 83-page ruling released not long ago gives UNC a preliminary injunction blocking the bathroom portion of HB 2. It means basically that the UNC system does not have to enforce the bathroom portion of HB 2. We saw a lot of protests like the one you're seeing right here on college campuses like UNCG after HB 2 was signed into law. The federal judge says HB 2 violates federal law when it relates to gender equality in education, Title IX. Now, the judge denied a request to have the same injunction enforced on any other public government bathroom. Now, here are some reaction that we're getting. North Carolina ACLU legal director tweeting, important to note, this is not a surprise. The ACLU told Pat McCrory and the North Carolina General Assembly that HB 2 violated Title IX the day it was introduced. Hashtag NCPOL political and hashtag repeal HB 2. So far, no reaction or opinions from the governor's office or legislative leaders.
days after daring to discuss Hillary Clinton's health, renowned celebrity physician Dr. Drew Pinsky's show was canceled. The HLN cable network announced that they would cancel Dr. Drew on Call. They didn't really give many details other than that they said they had mutually agreed to air the final episode of his show September 22nd. But you'll recall just about 8 days ago, America's most trusted physician made some startling revelations about Hillary's health. He stated that he was gravely concerned not just about her health, but her health care. He also said Clinton suffered from brain damage, among other concerning ailments. Believe it or not, that interview was subsequently deleted by KABC. Now, sure, it's possible that this was all just a coincidence, but shutting down and censoring dissent is what we can expect in Hillary's America.
Evangelicals believe a fresh wave of persecution will accompany a new law that forbids sharing their faith in public. Russian authorities call it an anti-terrorism measure, but as Heather Sells reports, it directly targets Protestants.
Christians in Russia can no longer freely share their faith in public, at home, or on social media. They must also obtain official approval before inviting people to church. Breaking any of these new rules can lead to fines and even prison.
Everybody is stunned. I mean, it came so quickly, unexpectedly. Nobody expected that.
Sergei Rakuba heads Mission Eurasia, which equips church leaders in Russia and across Central Asia. He says this controversial move brings back memories of laws passed by Soviet dictators Nikita Khrushchev and Joseph Stalin.
They're trying to push the evangelical church back behind the walls again, as the Soviets did.
For Christians, this means no informal Bible studies, dinners, or sharing of faith. House churches, estimated at 1,000 alone in Moscow, are outlawed. Preaching and praying can only happen at state-approved sites.
Political scientist Eric Patterson says the new law aims to keep out any form of dissent in Russian society and confines religious activity strictly to the state-sanctioned Orthodox Church.
It's really designed to put evangelicals and other people of faith outside the Russian church into a very, very small box.
A top French court has overturned a controversial ban on Muslim-friendly burkini bathing suits. The Council of State ruled Friday that a ban imposed in the town of Villeneuve-Loubet seriously and clearly illegally breached fundamental freedoms to come and go, freedom of beliefs, and individual freedom. But the decision is expected to set a legal precedent for about 30 other French cities and towns that have similar bans on the full-body swimsuit. Officials say the burkini ban on public beaches was in response to growing concerns over terror threats. But critics denounce the move as discriminatory and illegal, and others worry the bans could make tensions between cultures worse. Still, one mayor on the French Mediterranean island of Corsica has already vowed to keep the ban in place. He told BFM TV, "Here the tension is very, very, very strong, and I won't withdraw it." The Council of State is set to make a final decision regarding the legality of other bans at a later date.
A fence at the Hungarian border has been pretty effective at blocking refugees from entering. Now, the country plans to build a second one. Last year, 400,000 refugees entered Europe through Hungary, but Hungary tightened its border and built a more than 100-mile fence alongside Serbia. Official data says only 18,000 have entered through Hungary in 2016. Hungary's prime minister recently announced the country would build another wall along the Serbian border. He told Hungary's public radio, "We'll have to stop them with force, and we will do so." And Hungarian security has used force before. Last year, forces tear-gassed refugees trying to break through the border barrier. Humanitarian groups have criticized the no-man's land Hungary and Serbia have created with the country's strict borders. Others argue Hungary's treatment of refugees isn't in line with European Union laws. Despite the criticisms, it appears Hungary will move forward with the new wall.
Now, Dutch far-right political party has pledged to close mosques and ban the Quran in a document outlining its electoral program ahead of the March 2017 parliamentary elections. The Freedom Party, or the PVV, says all mosques and Islamic schools must be closed in the Netherlands. The PVV, which is currently headed by hardline anti-Islam politician Geert Wilders, also pledged to close the borders, shut asylum seeker centers, that is, ban refugees from Islamic countries, and prevent Muslim women from wearing the headscarf in public. Wilders, who is scheduled to go on trial for inciting racial hatred, has said he will do all he can to hold a referendum on the Netherlands leaving the EU. The PVV is leading in opinion polls.
Shots fired at a high school, hostages strapped to explosives. It's a nightmare scenario for law enforcement. How do they respond? Tonight, you're going to see police stage an extraordinary active shooter drill, and it all plays out on camera.
Inside this Colorado high school, we are on the front line of one of the most dynamic active shooter drills in the country. The goal, make it as real and stressful as possible. Gory makeup on victims, fire alarms, heavy smoke, deputies rushing in amid screams and confusion. Their mission, to subdue the shooter as quickly as possible.
They're going to have to prioritize. One, what's the priority of life? One is to stop the threat. Second is to start saving lives.
Walking wounded. People. Sergeant Jeff Engel is coordinating today's exercise for the Douglas County Sheriff's Department here in suburban Denver.
There's got to be that immediacy, that aggressive action, that you need to go in and stop the threat.
With 248 mass shootings this year and counting, his department and those around the country are using real-life tragedies as a way to prepare.
And you incorporated some of Orlando into what you were doing today, right? Tell me what it was you did.
Having a situation where we had a whole bunch of folks that were surrounded by a device. And how are we going to move people from a place of danger to a place of security?
People from St. Louis and other parts of eastern Missouri forced to evacuate at a moment's notice after an earthquake. And then some of those people need to stay here in Kansas City. It's a very real scenario unfolding earlier today here in Jackson County. The Now's Allison Bruner shows us how the statewide disaster drill will keep us all safe.
It's not uncommon for smaller earthquakes to happen here in southeast Missouri in this area. But what if a larger one were to happen? Well, that's why local volunteers are preparing for a much bigger one that could happen here in this zone.
Lessons before disaster hits. That's why the Jackson County Emergency Preparedness Team is taking part in this drill known as
the Show Me Mass Care exercise.
Actors playing patience.
I've been on a motorcycle crash, so I have a lot of road rash, and I also had a dog.
This all happening inside Crown Point Church.
Gloria, copy.
This would be a mass care shelter, which is a place that literally would give shelter to people for maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks.
We have set up to give tetanus shots today, first aid station. We're doing medical assessment screening.
280. Okay. All right. Thank you. We have police, we have fire, we have health departments. We have public transportation. For the first time, pet shelter, because we found that people like to bring their animals with, and they're hesitant to leave somewhere if they can't bring them with.
More than 500 volunteers taking part in this event to create a readiness plan before disaster strikes.
Now, with North Korea's apparent development and advancement in weapons technology, South Korea is rethinking about its submarine fleet as well and in advancing them. Many experts say Seoul should move to acquire nuclear-powered subs to better prepare for the possibility of a North Korean attack.
According to the Defense Ministry, the South Korean Navy has a total of 16 subs, with 14 of them currently active. That leaves it severely outnumbered by North Korea, which is believed to have 70 subs or even more. What's more, South Korea's subs are all diesel-electric, a drawback that could be fatal in combat. Diesel-electric subs have batteries that need to be recharged often, which means the vessel has to surface and possibly expose itself to enemies. That's one big reason why the experts stress the need for South Korea to acquire subs that can stay underwater for longer. The solution, they say, is develop nuclear power. They're a lot quicker, capable of moving at 40 kilometers per hour, 3 times faster than diesel-powered ones.
is the aftermath of a bombing that killed at least 11 police officers and injured dozens of people in Turkey. It's bringing attention back to Cizre, a town near the Syrian border. Cizre is a tense area due to frequent clashes between the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, and the Turkish government. So it wasn't surprising when Turkey's prime minister and other officials in the country quickly blamed the PKK for the attack. The bombing was reportedly at a checkpoint and near a police headquarters. But several attacks from both sides have been carried out in recent months since a ceasefire negotiation fell through last year. Cizre has been subjected to on-again, off-again curfews by Turkish forces. Residents who stayed said they were cut off from necessities, and those who fled came back to destroyed buildings. In May, the United Nations pushed for an investigation into reports that around 100 civilians were burned to death in Cizre basements by Turkish security forces. Despite the previous ceasefire and calls for peace, this time the Turkish government doesn't seem willing to talk with PKK leaders until the group surrenders weapons.
On Thursday evening, Al-Shabaab set off a car bomb not far from the recently opened Turkish embassy in Mogadishu. Locals are trying to retrieve what's left of it.
It was the vehicle behind me. Thank God I survived. The car that exploded passed me twice. When I heard the explosion, I jumped out of my car and ran to safety.
Somali police engaged the attackers in a 6-hour gun battle inside this restaurant. This is the extent of Thursday night's attack after militants stormed this seafront restaurant here in the capital, Mogadishu.
The news of the killing has shocked the nation. Fractious negotiations between the government and striking cooperative miners turned violent. 2 protesters were killed when police clashed with miners armed with dynamite, who'd blocked several major roads. Rodolfo Illanes, the Vice Interior Minister, went to negotiate with them. The government says he was held hostage, tortured, and finally beaten to death. His body was found dumped on the side of a road.
The vast majority of miners in Bolivia work in cooperatives, and there are few foreign-owned mining firms in the country. The government nationalized its resource sector after taking power in 2006, but falling prices have hampered government spending. And support from unions, once key backers of the government, seems to be dwindling.
President Robert Mugabe has warned there'll be no Arab Spring in Zimbabwe after protests against his decades-long rule turned violent. The so-called mega demonstration was held in Harare amid opponents' outrage that the 92-year-old is standing for re-election. Protesters want international observers to monitor the ballot in 2018, fearing it will be rigged. Despite tear gas and water cannon that forced opposition leaders and demonstrators to flee, activists have warned that this was just the first in a series of protests.
Friday, the U.S. Department of Agriculture reported that a deadly strain of avian flu was found in a wild duck in Alaska. The strain, known as H5N2, is the very same variety of bird flu that led to the deaths of approximately 50 million birds in the United States last year.
The northern Spanish region of Navarra has been hit by its worst wildfires in 30 years. Fueled by high summer temperatures and strong winds, around 3,000 hectares are estimated to have been destroyed. Dozens of fire crews were battling the blazes throughout the night on Thursday, which are now said to be contained but not extinguished. Scientists say coral bleaching is getting worse in southwestern Japan. It's feared the damage, which includes areas near the island of Okinawa, could be the most serious in nearly 20 years. Water temperatures topped 30 degrees Celsius this year. Under such conditions, coral bleaching usually takes place within 2 to 4 weeks. A lack of typhoons in the region is one explanation being put forward for the unseasonal high water temperatures.